Sarah has always loved robots, so when she was accepted to a good college with a solid engineering program, she was so excited to study robotics.
I came here to chew bubblegum and build robots, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
But when it came time to register for classes, she realized she had to take at least 16 general education classes and 3 free electives in order to get her bachelor's degree in engineering.
Wait, what? To learn about robots, I have to take the textual appeal of Tupac Shakur?
That's just one example of the interesting college courses that are available, some of which students have to take, regardless of their major or what they want to do.
Remind me again why I have to take 4 or 5 semesters worth of fluff classes?
As a tenured professor, I can attest that a well-rounded student is a good student. Also, I need to justify my existence here.
But I just want to build robots. Demystifying the hipster doesn't help me with that. Forget this nonsense. I'll teach myself.
No, knowledge can only come from on high.
Sorry, dude. Free online courses and YouTube tutorials cost a lot less than taking classes I don't need.
General education course requirements are just one of the reasons that the cost of college tuition is so high. Forcing students to take classes that aren't actually relevant to their degree keeps students enrolled longer and creates an artificial demand for an overinflated supply. Combine that with an ever-expanding administrative staff to accommodate regulations and cushy amenities, and tuition prices just keep going up. It's no wonder so many college grads are struggling with their student loans.
Tell me about it.
The average individual student loan debt in 2012 was $25,550 for public colleges and $32,300 for private ones.
Oh, thanks, GenBot.
Relaxing general education requirements would probably help reduce college tuition prices. Not to mention prospective students opting out of big academia altogether to use alternate forms of education, like Sarah here. By the way, Sarah, it's a pretty nice robot you built.
Thanks.
Wait, I am a robot?
Hey folks, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out fee.org for more educational content. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody!
Happy Thanksgiving!
What's to be thankful for? The world is a mess!
Oh, but it's a lot less messy than it used to be, my boy.
Indeed. Life in America today is far better than many are willing to admit. There's much to be thankful for. Example?
Well, I'm thankful for lighting and how cheap it's become. Our prehistoric ancestors needed to gather wood for 60 hours just to produce the amount of light your average light bulb emits in 54 minutes. And today, 60 hours of work can produce enough energy for 52 years of lighting.
Huh. I guess that's something to be thankful for.
And what about things like televisions, cell phones, toys, and software? All of those have become immensely cheap.
Because of Black Friday?
No, because once again, the market has driven the prices down and pushed the quality up. Flat screen TVs are 96% cheaper than they were in 1996. Toys are 67% cheaper, software is 66% cheaper, and wireless service is 45% cheaper. All thanks to a free market and global trade.
How did you have all of that memorized?
Yep, the awesome reality is, most of us live better than billionaires did just 100 years ago.
Nonsense! No one could live better than a billionaire.
Are you sure about that? No matter how rich you were in 1918, there was virtually no air conditioning, heating was subpar, travel was slow, there were no antibiotics, meaning a simple infection could kill you, the food was low quality and of a low variety, most of your cravings would go unmet.
And speaking of unmet cravings...
I'm thankful for how long this impromptu speech has kept me from my food.
Oh, sorry. Dig in, everybody! Happy Thanksgiving!
Happy Thanksgiving!
Hey folks, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out fee.org for more educational content. Thank you.
Guys, I've got great news.
What is it?
I'm pregnant!
Well, yeah, whoa, congrats! Who would have guessed?
Pregnant? But don't you know? The world's already overpopulated!
Actually, Bob, the narrative of impending human overpopulation is mostly mythical.
Yeah, I heard about that. Isn't most of that just sensationalism and junk science?
What? How could the possibility of too many people be a myth? There are only so many natural resources.
Yes and no. The concept of natural resources is a pretty misunderstood one. People tend to believe that there have always been a finite number of usable resources to which humans have had access, and that throughout the course of human history, we've been dwindling down our supply. But this is a huge oversimplification. While it's true that we do live in a finite universe, the number of resources we have access to is constantly expanding.
How is that possible?
Because we're constantly discovering new resources we never knew could be helpful to us and developing more efficient ways of harvesting what we already value.
But what if we run out of resources before we can discover new ones?
That doesn't seem likely. To start with, since 1980, the population has gone from 4.5 billion to 7.5 billion. And yet, extreme poverty has been cut in half.
Wait, so you're telling me that as our population has increased, poverty has decreased?
But that's the exact opposite of what we would see if more people meant fewer resources for everyone else. Yep.
That's insane!
Well, it might seem insane if you view humans as liabilities, but the truth is, every person is an asset. Beyond being valuable on a metaphysical level, we all have an incredible potential to produce wealth for ourselves and others. And as the population increases, this potential increases as well. In other words, as our need to consume resources increases, so does our ability.
Huh. That makes sense. So Sarah's child won't be a terrible burden on the world.
Thanks.
Nope. In fact, that child has a bright future ahead. What?
I just came over here to tell you that I was pregnant, and you ended up lecturing us about some obscure economic principle. Why can't you just be normal? Why can't we have ordinary human interactions? Why is it that every time we hang out, you end up explaining the economy to somebody?
When is the baby due?
I already had it!
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please check out fee.org. Thank you. Hey, I have a project that I don't have time to complete, but it should only take a few more hours of work. Would you mind if I paid you $50 to take care of it?
Sure, I got nothing better to do.
What? $50? You can't live off that! How can you pay this person anything less than a full-time livable salary when they're working for you?
Well, because not every service we might exchange money for requires a full-time salaried employee. For example, I have a client who's paying me $2,000 to create a short animation. I've spent the last month putting it together, but now I'm finding I won't have the time to complete the last 5 hours of work. There's two possible scenarios. I can find someone who's willing to work for me, let them earn a bit of money assisting me and deliver a product to a happy client, or you can shut me down for not paying a quote living wage unquote, in which case my project won't be completed. I'll miss out on my hard-earned money, my reputation will be damaged, the person willing to help me will miss out on $50, and the client won't get their product. Seems pretty unfair that you'd be able to make everyone's life so much more difficult.
But that's just greedy. You only feel that way because you're getting a living wage.
I'm okay with it. Plus, I need some rent money.
Quiet, you!
Actually, virtually none of my clients pay me enough to live off of. Most of them can only afford to hire me for a few months out of the year for a fraction of the average salary. But fortunately, I've been able to accumulate enough clients so that my combined earnings are enough to support myself. But if you told each of my clients that because they weren't paying me a full-time salary, they shouldn't be able to hire me, I would never have been able to build my career or pay any of the private contractors I work with. That would be unfair to everyone.
Huh. Well, I guess that makes sense for part-time work, but a lot of businesses pay low wages to workers who are with them full-time.
Well, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, most minimum wage workers are young people working part-time. Only 1% of full-time hourly wage earners make minimum wage or less, compared to 6% of part-time hourly wage earners. And of all hourly workers earning minimum wage or less, half are under the age of 25, despite the fact that people 25 and under only make up about 20% of hourly wage earners. These are often high school and college students working jobs in the summer and during the school year, people with other sources of income just looking for extra cash, and a lot of people who've not yet developed the skills or experience needed to command a higher salary. But most people don't remain in low-paid positions their entire lives. As they get older and gain more education and more experience, they move up in income as well.
Look, whether it's myself, Seamus, or someone working at a fast food joint, it's good that you want people to earn a fair wage. But what's most important is for us to be able to have a job in the first place. The way to ensure that is to lower as many of the barriers to getting a job or becoming an entrepreneur as we possibly can, not to put more in the way.
Exactly. Are we really going to cut the people who are just starting out or people like me with multiple employers out of the workforce?
Yes! Police!
Can't always count on people to be reasonable.
Hey, at least you've got walls.
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to view more similar educational content, please check out fee.org. Thank you. Meet Jessica. Jessica works at a local tech company. She likes her job, but she's always felt like she could do more. So she was very excited when she got a job offer from a tech startup in the big city. But there was one really big problem. Even with the higher salary they offered, there was no way she could afford to pay rent in the big city.
This is unfair. Greedy landlords are exploiting vulnerable renters with high prices. It should be illegal to charge this much.
This is a common demand people make, and on the surface it sounds like a good idea.
Because it is one?
Not exactly.
How'd I know that was coming?
The price of anything depends heavily on supply and demand. The reason rent is so high in most big cities is because a lot of people want to live there, but there isn't enough housing. So that means what is available is pretty expensive.
You're telling me.
Normally, when the price of something, like rent, is very high, it's a signal that there's money to be made providing that thing to others. So entrepreneurs start making more of that thing so they can make money. And the more people are making a thing, the more the price for it decreases, as the suppliers start competing with each other. But rent control ruins that.
Ruin? How could rent control ruin that?
Government already makes creating housing way more expensive than it needs to be through regulatory burdens. But when the owners can charge whatever rent seems fair to them, there's at least a chance for them to make back the money they invested and hopefully earn a profit. But when the government puts a cap on the price of housing, it becomes almost impossible to earn a profit off of it. So yeah, the very few people who manage to get rent-controlled places to live are happy with their below-market price housing. But it ultimately makes rent more expensive for everyone else, like Jessica here. Because builders know that the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. So the supply stays low, the demand stays high, and prices just keep going up.
I guess that makes sense, but if government makes all these rules that cause the price of living to get so high, why don't they just stop?
Why indeed? Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please check out similar educational content at fee.org. Thank you.
What's going on here?
Just making a trade.
A pencil for a phone? Are you insane? A pencil isn't worth as much as a phone is.
You're right. It's worth more.
You would really trade a phone for a pencil? Why?
I don't know. I just like this pencil more than I like that phone. That's why I made the trade.
But you can't just trade two things that don't have equal value.
Oh, these two items definitely aren't equal in value. People only trade two things that are more valuable than one another.
What? More? How is that possible?
Bob, don't ruin this for me.
Remember when I explained that economic value is subjective?
Nah, I wasn't in that video.
I remember it.
Well, this is a similar concept. Things are worth what people are willing to pay for them. The reason I was willing to trade my phone for Sarah's pencil is because I value her pencil more than I valued having my phone. And she only wanted my phone because she valued my phone more than her pencil. For a trade to work, there has to be some kind of gain for both parties involved. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to trade. And if we view the item we already owned as more valuable than what we were asked to trade it for, we definitely wouldn't want to trade it. So when we choose to trade, that means each of us values the thing we got out of the exchange more than whatever we traded it for. And that means, in a way, both of us are actually wealthier than we were before the trade. So just by trading, we've created wealth.
That makes sense, but why? Why would you find this trade valuable?
It's really bothering you, Bob, and I find that enjoyable.
Huh? But phones cost so much money, and pencils are so cheap.
It's not all about dollars and cents. You just don't know why something is worth what it is to another person. Maybe I just hated having a phone and happened to need to write something down. Maybe my grandfather gave her this pencil before he died. Or maybe this is some kind of special limited edition pencil signed by Babe Ruth.
Why would Babe Ruth sign a pencil?
So people would know it was his, Bob. Or maybe the whole reason this trade was worth it to me was so I could make this point about trade creating wealth. Either way, you're gonna have to get used to the fact that not everyone values things the way you do.
Oh my, what a trade.
What?
What an exquisite pencil.
Told ya!
Howdy, everyone. Thanks for watching. For more content like this, check out fee.org.
I love having nice things.
Well, you can thank the Division of Labor for that.
Ah! How did you get past the home security system again?
The only reason a modern and developed society is able to provide us with things like home security systems, wire cutters, and the many other goods and services we enjoy is because in a market economy, people are able to specialize in creating one specific thing.
You mean no one person could make any of the expensive things that I own?
For the most part, no. The reason our products are so intricate and useful is because people who are good at creating one specific part of them continue to develop that particular element of the product, sometimes for their entire careers. No one person could make your cell phone, but a team of people could create a really good operating system for it. Another could develop a really fast processor, and another team could create a really great screen for it. And within these teams, even more specialization occurs. Whoever's best at any part of the process fulfills that role.
What? How? Why? How do they know what they should be doing? Who tells them?
Well, we do.
Us? I don't remember telling no nerd to make my phone. And I want it done by next week.
No, not like that. We tell them through the mechanism of profit. If I'm really good at making lemonade, I'll be able to make more money than my competition, and this increase in profit will work as a signal to tell me to keep doing what I'm doing. And similarly, a decrease in profits will tell my competition to either step up their game or do something else.
Huh. So, a functional division of labor is based on profit motive?
That's right. If everyone made the same amount of money and profit didn't matter, people wouldn't be incentivized to make the things others wanted them to make, and society would never produce all of the things it needed. Especially because a lot of what we want is kind of unpleasant to provide. Like those butt implants you got.
Why do you keep bringing that up?
Without profit, we would end up with too much of what we didn't want and not enough of what we needed. The further a society develops, the more divided labor becomes. Whereas in the past, a handful of people could hunt and gather everything they needed to survive alone, today we rely on an interconnected system of billions of people, and each of them, for the most part, are developing the skills they're good at. You know that old saying about being a jack of all trades but a master of none? You're adequate at everything, but you can't do anything really incredible. And without a division of labor, that's basically what everyone has to be.
Hey, that not true at all. My name not Jack, it Og.
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see similar educational content, please check out fee.org. Thank you. This is Abby. She and her husband, Tom, are trying to start a family while struggling to afford the high cost of living in California. Abby and Tom have been saving every penny that they can to afford the down payment on a new home, which they're hoping to move into before their first child arrives. This has been no easy task, given that homes in California are more than 2 times as expensive as they are in the rest of the country. Abby and Tom finally have enough to begin searching for a home when...
And so it is decided that all new homes must be built with solar panels.
Ah, but won't that increase the cost of the average home by $10,000? And won't the cost of inspections, cleanings, and repairs also cost homeowners an average of another $1,000 annually? And isn't California already the poorest state in the union when factoring in cost of living? Wouldn't this likely be the biggest and costliest change in the last 40 years of the CPIA's history, at a time when regular Californians are struggling horribly?
No! Now we'll never be able to afford a home.
But at least the environment will be helped.
Maybe, maybe not. Solar energy has its benefits, sure, but it has a lot of drawbacks as well. Because most energy consumption takes place at night when the sun isn't shining, lots of energy needs to be stored in batteries, which are terrible for the environment. Not only that, but it's extremely expensive. Germany, which leads the world in solar energy consumption, has some of the highest utility bills because of it, and solar still only accounts for less than 10% of their energy consumption.
I guess not everyone can appreciate the genius of our policymaking.
Hey folks, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out fee.org for more educational content. Thank you. Hey, I'm gonna go ask people if I can mow their lawn for money. Wanna come with?
How did you get in my house? And why would I do that when I could sit here and watch Netflix?
Well, because sitting around and doing nothing can actually cost you money.
What? Cost me money? How?
It's called an opportunity cost. Anytime you do anything, you're foregoing doing something else. When you sit around watching the tube, that means you aren't putting in extra time at work to get ahead or seeking out new ways to make money on the side. So it's actually costing you what you could have made otherwise. This is obvious to people who are self-employed and set their own hours, but people who get stuck in the routine of a 9-to-5 job tend to have a harder time seeing this.
What? Are you saying people should always be working?
Not at all. If you could make $200 today, but you chose instead to lounge around, all that means is vegging out is worth more to you than the money you could have made instead. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's important to understand and consider the costs of your activities because we often don't.
But what if there aren't any ways to make money?
Well, then there's still a cost, it just isn't a financial one. You could be learning a new skill or spending time with family and friends, but instead, you're here. And once again, that isn't exactly a bad thing. Relaxing can be necessary after all. But what's important for people to realize is that nothing, literally nothing, is free. Anytime you do anything, it's at the expense of doing something else.
So you're telling me that everything I do has a cost? And that I can't escape this? That no matter what I do, I'll always be missing out on something else because of the limitless possibilities present within my finite life, that there's only so much time to do the things that are truly worthwhile, and that the only way to truly cope with this reality is to always ensure I'm getting the most out of each moment?
Basically.
Cool.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please check out similar educational content at fee.org. Thank you. Once there was a gold-seeking prospector. He funded all of his endeavors with his own money and paid his diggers for each hole they dug or mined, whether or not they found anything. One day, one of them finally struck gold, and boom, he was rich. His years of working hard and creating jobs were finally being rewarded.
Not so fast. Why do you get the entire gold nugget? After all, I dug the hole. Shouldn't we be splitting it 50-50? Boy, that is just ridiculous. I paid you to dig that there hole. Capitalist swine, living off my surplus labor. I should have known you were a gold digger.
Seems silly, right? Unfortunately, it's happening in the world today. Many argue that all workers are entitled to a proportional share of their boss's profits, but that's just not right. Most new business owners go years without ever seeing a profit, and that's if they're lucky enough to get any money. Most businesses fail, after all. Not only do they need a large share of the profits to compensate for all the time and money they've spent on the enterprise, they deserve it for their years and years of unpaid labor.
Nonsense. What about after they've recouped their costs? Then any excess money they pull in from their workers is theft.
Nope. Once again, the only reason their workers are able to make any money in this context is because someone else built the business. Not to mention, business owners invest thousands and sometimes millions or billions into their enterprises in order to develop new products and technologies to improve the lives of their consumers and pull in more capital to pay themselves and their workers.
Please, those rich jerkwads can afford to pay.
Sorry, but that usually isn't true either. Most businesses are small businesses, and part of why people start them is because they want to be in full control of the value of their labor, which is the same thing you want. But it's not something you're entitled to unless you start a business yourself. Otherwise, no one would ever start a new business and our economy would stagnate.
Oh, that's just economics mumbo jumbo. I don't see why I shouldn't get an equal share of profits.
Okay, there's an easier way to settle this. Are you willing to get paid less on years where profits are down, and would you go into debt if the business you worked for did? No! That's why. Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to view more similar educational content, please check out fee.org. Thank you.
I am so sad that they are closing Toys B Us after all these years.
I'm not.
What?
It's easy to get nostalgia goggles stuck on your face and assume that we did everything better back in the day, but that just isn't the case. The truth is, the way we do things can always be improved upon, and over time, businesses, products, technologies, and even entire industries are phased out as we develop new and better ways of doing things. This is known as creative destruction. It's what allowed horse-driven carriages to be replaced by cars, fireplaces to be replaced by furnaces, dial-up to be replaced by Wi-Fi, video rental stores to be replaced by streaming services, and yes, it's even allowing for certain traditional stores to be replaced by online markets. And that's a good thing.
A good thing? But what about all the people who lose their jobs in the process?
I know that's awful, but because their job is within an industry so inefficient that it's being replaced, that means their labor would be more valuable elsewhere. Sure, some people will be out of work while transitioning careers, but the same was true when horse drivers were phased out of the market when the automobile became popularized, or when video rental stores closed in lieu of streaming. If we don't allow these kinds of changes to occur, then when society inevitably develops new needs, they won't be filled because the people who could assist in providing them will be too busy working in fields that we no longer need.
I guess that makes sense, but I'll still miss Toys B Us.
And that's understandable. As humans, we're constantly looking for new and better ways of doing things, and yet we're also reluctant to embrace change. So yeah, sometimes when we're feeling nostalgic, we're gonna miss going to the video rental store or saving files to floppy disks, writing letters and calling people over landlines. But in the grand scheme of things, do we really want to go back? To DVDs that skip, to storage systems that can barely hold a megabyte, to letters taking days to reach people, to calls we need to be sitting in our kitchen in order to get? Or to stores we need to waste time and gas money driving to when we can just as easily have these products delivered at the push of a button? Of course not.
I guess that makes sense. Goodbye, Toys B Us.
Want to hit it with the wrecking ball?
Absolutely!
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please check out fee.org for similar educational material. Thanks so much. Fun fact, in Canada, lightweight trucks are much less expensive than they are in the US. Why? Because of chickens. What came first, the chicken or the trade war? Until the 1960s, chicken was considered a delicacy in Europe. But due to America's ability to farm more efficiently, chickens were produced much more inexpensively in the US and then imported into Europe, driving down the overall market value of chickens. And this made life better for most people, except for a small minority, the European chicken industry.
Big chicken at it again.
So, a number of European countries imposed a tariff on chickens to protect their chicken industries. This not only hurt the general population, which now had to absorb the higher costs of chickens once again, it also hurt chicken producers in the US. As a result, 1961 to 1964 was known as the Great Chicken War. At the time, this was such a pressing issue that Senator William Fulbright interrupted a Cold War-era NATO nuclear disarmament debate to shift to another topic: trade sanctions on US chicken. German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer reported that half of his correspondence with US President John F. Kennedy was over chickens. Ask not what chickens can do for you. Ask what you can do for chickens. Because we're a country of the chickens, by the chickens, and for the chickens, the US had to retaliate, so President Johnson imposed a 25% tariff on potato starch, dextrin, brandy, and light trucks. Harvard professor Robert Z. Lawrence wrote, "The chicken tax crippled the U.S. automobile industry by insulating it from real competition in light trucks for 40 years. So, in the end, countless resources were wasted, and it's harder for Americans to get trucks, all because some Europeans got their feathers ruffled over cheap American chicken. And that is why tariffs are stupid." Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please check out fee.org for more educational material. Did you know that over the last 30 years, healthcare costs have not only increased, but there hasn't been a proportional increase in quality of care?
Everyone's a critic. How would you fix it?
Well, I would start by making healthcare prices and costs more transparent. See, prices are signals which convey information about scarcity and value. But between mandates, price controls, and third-party payers like government, employers, and insurance companies acting as middlemen, nobody even knows what they're actually paying for their care. And no one has much of a reason to be concerned. Without knowing what a procedure actually costs, patients have no way to shop around for better deals or alternatives. And without much competition, healthcare providers don't have any incentive to control costs or improve their services. If patients knew what their options were and what they were going to cost, and if we allowed healthcare providers to compete by offering different levels of service, different prices, and doing all the other stuff normal businesses do, everything would change.
But Seamus, healthcare isn't a normal business. Competition? Prices? Nonsense.
But here's the thing. There are examples of healthcare providers working in that exact way. They're called retail clinics.
What is a retail clinic?
Retail clinics offer routine medical services that require a professional but not a full-fledged hospital or doctor's office. These services are administered by nurse practitioners and physician assistants. And these clinics not only provide the same quality of care as other medical establishments, they drive down healthcare costs drastically, saving on average between $40 and $300 on medical treatment per visit.
Whoa! It sounds like these clinics have great potential to improve healthcare.
They do. But unfortunately, driving down healthcare costs is a great way to make enemies with the AMA.
I love AMAs. I get to ask my favorite personalities any question I want.
Fun, right? But this kind of AMA stands for American Medical Association, not Ask Me Anything. And instead of allowing you to air your inquiries with your favorite public figures, they lobby the government to protect licensing and keep healthcare costs high.
Oh, well that's not fun. That's not fun at all.
No, it isn't. Naturally, the AMA is not in love with retail clinics and are trying to lobby to restrict them. We must push back against this. The healthcare industry is extremely complex and has many issues. To say there's one clear-cut, obvious solution would be asinine. But retail clinics have helped to greatly cut healthcare costs for people who are uninsured or struggling to afford their high deductibles, demonstrating that we need more entrepreneurship and freedom in the healthcare market, so we can actually reconnect prices, increase competition, and improve healthcare for everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, check out fee.org for more information.
We must raise the minimum wage.
He's right, we must.
Actually, minimum wage laws aren't as benevolent as you might think.
Let me guess. You're one of those people who thinks minimum wage increases increase unemployment.
Not only does a minimum wage in general reduce employment, it can be argued that it was actually initially developed to do so. In fact, early 20th century socialist thought leader Sidney Webb wrote an article entitled The Economic Theory of a Legal Minimum Wage, in which he described married women, the disabled, and other, quote, invalids, unquote, as parasites who were taking work from able-bodied men. See, it was understood by many early on that minimum wage laws were there to price the less fit out of the marketplace. As a result, minimum wage laws were adopted early on by white racists to push ethnic minorities and immigrants out of the job.
A Harvard professor of that era referred approvingly to Australia's minimum wage law as a means to protect the white Australian standard of living from the invidious competition of the colored races, particularly the Chinese.
Yep, and in the US, before federal minimum wage laws were instituted, black unemployment was actually slightly lower than white unemployment. But unfortunately, that trend reversed. Because whenever the price of a good or service is artificially increased, people buy or use less of that thing. This is why some places increase taxes on things like cigarettes and gasoline, because they want fewer people to buy them. Because if raising the price of gasoline means
fewer people buy gas,
and raising the price of cigarettes means
fewer people buy cigarettes,
then raising the price of labor means
we've solved poverty and you're a neoliberal bigot for disagreeing with such a policy?
I get what he's saying. Minimum wage laws don't always help the way we think they should. When you raise the cost of labor, fewer people will buy it, and low-skilled laborers never get the opportunity to improve their skills and living circumstances because no one will hire them.
Nonsense! How else are we supposed to help the poor survive when it's so hard to make ends meet?
Well, you could stop taking 20% of their income through taxation.
Besides that, big businesses make so much money, and they can't even pay their workers? Why not just force them to hire people?
Well, because most businesses in this country are small businesses, and no, they can't afford minimum wage increases. And if you shut them down because of that, they never grow to the point where they can afford to pay anyone a full-time salary. I mean, you should understand this. Don't you run a political campaign? How much do you pay your workers?
Oh, they're unpaid interns.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, visit fee.org for more educational content. Thanks so much. Yeah, I call this one VCR with a butter knife stuck in it. Brilliant.
Visionary.
I must have it. Name your price.
I don't know, I guess like $13 trillion or something.
Yes, I'll give you 4 trillion.
How dare you insult me? No deal.
I'll pay the asking price.
13 trillion? That trash isn't worth 13 trillion.
You're right. 14 trillion.
What? No! Don't do that, it's worthless.
Mind your business, lady. Actually, if you think about it, things are really just worth whatever price the buyer and seller agree on. If either of them thinks the price is wrong, they can walk away.
That's ridiculous.
Not really. Economic value is entirely subjective.
That may be the case for something as abstract as art, but for actual goods and services, it's different.
Is it? Let me ask you, would you trade a diamond for a bottle of water?
No way.
Why not?
Because a bottle of water only costs $1 and diamonds are worth thousands of dollars.
Okay, but what if you were trapped on a desert island with no water and a treasure chest full of diamonds? Would you trade one diamond for some water then?
Oh, well, I guess.
The value of goods or services change. In the city, you have tons of water whenever you need it, but diamonds are rare and beautiful, so water is worth almost nothing to you, even though you need it to survive, and diamonds are worth a lot. But in the desert, you have no water, and you can't drink shiny rocks, so...
Fine. But I still don't understand why someone would pay $13 trillion for a VCR with a butter knife in it.
It isn't worth that much to you, and that's totally okay. But when you're thinking about how much something is worth, you're thinking about how much you are going to value having that thing in comparison to how much you value whatever it is you're being asked to trade for it. Obviously, weirdo art has no value to you, but for someone who loves that kind of thing, well... everybody is unique. We all have different wants and needs and different resources as well. As a result, we all value things differently. And that means sometimes we aren't always going to understand why other people are willing to pay a ton of money for stuff that we think is worthless. Why did you make this thing anyway? Oh, I'm really just doing a performance piece.
Incredible! What's it called?
Rich idiots overpaying for pretentious nonsense. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, you can check out more similar material at fee.org. Thank you.
Ugh, the environment is in such bad shape. The government needs to do something. Nuh-uh, no it doesn't. Does too. Does not. Uh-huh. Nuh-uh.
There are plenty of ways to help the environment without government. It's called free market environmentalism.
Sounds stupid. What's that and why should I care?
Why free market environmentalism? Well, whether you believe strongly in property rights or not, the fact is government is relatively inconsistent and doesn't always handle protecting Mother Earth so well. So whether you respect and value a free market, or you don't much care about the market but you don't want to write a letter to your congressman because he's gross, here are several ways to protect the environment without government involvement. One great way to protect the environment from ruin is collective ownership.
Yes, comrade. Together we will seize the means of destruction.
Not like that.
Oh.
I'm talking about a group of people getting together and forming a private contract to own a piece of land together so they can forbid pollution and littering on it. Everyone wants a nice, clean place to live, and this is one way to ensure a cleaner neighborhood and healthier environment overall.
Okay, yeah, it's possible for individuals to help the environment when it comes to small-scale issues, but aren't big businesses destroying the environment too quickly for consumers to stop them?
No, not really. In fact, many businesses are doing good work to help save the environment. Paper companies, for example, do lots of work to replenish trees so they won't run out. Not only that, but new technologies have inadvertently but drastically lessened the demand for cutting down trees in the first place. For example, a small 16GB flash drive is able to contain roughly 10,847,408 pages of text at once. To have to print all of that information on paper would require just over 1,300 trees. But what can a market do to prevent massive impending ecological disasters? Like the inevitable extinction of bees, for example. What is the deal? Actually, bees aren't going extinct. Oh. Just kidding, there's a bit more to the picture than that. While not exactly going extinct, bees have been dying at increased rates over the past few years. But bee farmers have been breeding them so much more quickly that their population has stayed the same. Bees are livestock, and entrepreneurs don't want their property to go extinct. So in this case, a so-called impending travesty has been prevented by the market. Huh. So entrepreneurs can have a vested interest in protecting Earth? Absolutely. Which brings me to the final and arguably most important and effective way to help the environment. Hold businesses accountable. Don't write your gross congressman. Write letters to businesses or vote with your dollar when they behave in environmentally destructive ways. The market changes a whole lot more quickly than the government does, and the direction it moves in is way more up to you than you think. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out fee.org for other educational resources.
What did they put in there now?
Debt.
Unless you've been living under a rock or a pile of debt, you may have noticed tuition prices have been skyrocketing.
I've noticed.
College is more expensive now than it's ever been before.
Well, not exactly. Long ago, education was seen as a luxury as opposed to a necessity. The only people who were able to afford schooling were the wealthy.
Can you believe that mean old Miss Jenkins assigned 20 math problems for homework? And on the weekend, too. But if that's the case, why is it that I was able to pay my college tuition working a summer job?
And nearly every time the government becomes involved with providing a good or service, the price has gone up. And at some point, people felt college was too expensive and that Uncle Sam was best suited to solve this problem. So the government began subsidizing student loans, and for as greedy as you might want to claim some colleges are, they can only charge what people are able to pay. Once the government began to subsidize these loans, tuition prices skyrocketed. And that's because, according to the National Bureau for Economic Research, colleges respond to financial aid by increasing tuition.
So if anyone can get a loan, schools can charge a much higher price?
Yep, in the end, it was the wide availability of easy money which led to high tuition costs, not the privatization of universities. And what should really shock you is that a ton of the money has gone to more administrators, not better classrooms or more professors.
So I'm doomed to be saddled with debt and I'm not even gonna get a better education?
No! Now that we know where all the tuition increases are coming from, we could start to solve the problem by trying to get rid of all these federal subsidies. And colleges may be pricey, but in the meantime, there are plenty of ways to stay frugal. For one thing, there are all kinds of incredible ways to learn valuable skills and knowledge without going to college at all. And a lot of them are free, like Khan Academy or MIT's OpenCourseWare. Plus, there are affordable trade schools that teach super lucrative skills that can get you right into a high-demand career. But if you really do need a college degree, you could attend community college for your first 2 to 3 years of school, get good grades, transfer into the university you plan on graduating from, do your best to negotiate some sort of scholarship, and work while you're in school to help offset the costs. These are all things I did, and my degree ended up costing a fraction of what it ordinarily would have.
Wow, you sound like a pretty good example.
What was your degree in?
Was it engineering, or law, or a PhD in medicine?
Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out fee.org for more entertaining and educational content.
Oh, golly, I just can't go on living, I tell you what.
Oh no, what's wrong, sir?
The world would be better off without me. I'm selfish. I've done nothing for the poor.
Why would you say that?
I don't work for the government.
Come again? According to your record, you've done all sorts of good things for the community. Volunteered at soup kitchens, cleaned up litter, looked after family and friends. You even ran a small business which employed people. I'd say you've had a pretty positive impact.
But I'd have been able to do so much if I had just worked for a government agency.
It's true. You'll never be as good a person as me.
I don't know about that. What if the best way to contribute to the well-being of the community is without government?
Oh golly, this is where I used to help feed the needy.
Sure is, and you did a whole lot better than some public agency ever could. Volunteering for private charities is a great way for community members to help one another. Isn't that the best feeling in the world?
It sure is. One of the most meaningful and personal things there is to feel.
That's right, and a lot of times, government programs that seek to help the poor create an ineffective and impersonal environment where it's impossible to put a face to who's helping you and who's being helped. But charity is most successful when it's personal. 71% of all contributions to charity are from private individuals, and that number rises to 80% if you include all the money the deceased have left to charities in their will.
But private individuals are greedy. The only way we can really act as a community is through government.
Nope. In fact, this last year in the U.S., charitable donations exceeded $390 billion, which is an all-time high.
But the government spends roughly $1 trillion on the war on poverty every year. How can the market compete?
How did you know that? Who just knows that? You have a lot of statistics. It's okay, I do too. Government programs are far less effective than private charities, not only for the reasons laid out earlier, but because roughly 70% of all money budgeted for government assistance gets spent upholding and maintaining the bureaucracies charged with the task of helping the poor. When you pay taxes for the war on poverty, it's more likely that your money will end up in the pocket of a middle-class public sector worker than with a poor person in need.
Well, that doesn't sound good for the community at all. They really only end up spending 30% of all the money they receive on the poor?
Yep. Now compare that to private charities, which only spend 30% on infrastructure and employees and the other 70% on the poor.
Well, gosh. It's almost as if communities will care for their own without being forced by the government. I guess I am helping the community, and I shouldn't jump off this bridge.
No, people are bad at heart. You can't trust them to help each other on their own. You should jump off the bridge. You should jump off the bridge and you should do a backflip.
This guy. Well, it's true that people are sometimes greedy, but if that's the case, what's to prevent individuals operating from within the state system from being greedy themselves? Politicians are people too, you know.
That's a good point.
At the end of the day, every community is its own unique, complex ecosystem which knows best how to fulfill its own needs. And most importantly, community is, by definition, voluntary. You can't really force someone to be a part of your community through laws and regulations.
Well, gosh, I guess you're right. When I help the community, I do so because I care about those around me. Not because the government bullied me into doing so.
No, you fools! There are so many people who need your help. I mean, what kind of people would you be if you didn't contract bureaucrats hundreds of miles away to do the work for you?
Good members of the community.
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out fee.org for similar content and more information. Thanks again. We would like 2 lemonades, please.
That'll be 50 cents.
50 cents? I ain't paying no 50 cents for no lemonade. You expect us to pay for this?
Well,
Of course he does.
But we have a right to drink lemonade. It's our God-given right, Billy.
The word right is thrown around a whole lot these days. Whether it's the right to freedom of speech, the right to own a gun, the right to use birth control, the right to healthcare, or any other thing we're told we're entitled to. Some people seem to think they have a right to just about anything and everything. So what is a right?
well,
It means you get to do something.
Well, sort of. Rights are a moral concept that define the expectations and responsibilities we all have towards each other, based on the idea that every individual person's life, choices, and property are their own. They're not something that governments can give out to people, but something people are born with and that any good government shouldn't be allowed to take away.
Which...
Who said anything about the government? I ain't talking about no government. I just want some free lemonade. Well, yeah, but the only way that you can get something for free that somebody else doesn't want to give away is to either have the government take it from them or just steal it. But I repeat myself. Hello, 911? Yes, I have a little girl refusing to give me free lemonade from her lemonade stand. Hello? What are my taxes paying for? See, if you have a right to the product of her labor, that means she had to go through the process of creating it without being compensated. What? Well, why not just have taxes pay for it? That way she gets compensated for making a lemonade and I get lemonade without having to buy it. Everybody wins. Yeah, but then you're just taking money from someone else who wasn't even involved in the transaction and doesn't get anything in return. And besides, it's her lemonade. She might not even want to sell it to you.
Yeah,
Oh, next you're gonna be saying that people should get to decide what happens with their own stuff? Yeah. No one's saying you don't have a right to drink whatever you want, but that's not the same as saying you have a right to just take other people's stuff. For example, no one told you that you couldn't get plastic surgery, but you still have to find a way to pay for those butt implants yourself. You said you would never tell!
Hey, anything we consider to be a human right has to be universal and equal for everyone. And that means whatever treatment you think you're entitled to from others should be something you're prepared to respect for them in return. A right to life means it's never okay to murder or assault anyone else. A right to liberty means everybody gets to say and do what they want as long as they don't try to stop someone else from being able to do the same. A right to property, means nobody steals from each other and everybody gets to decide for themselves what to do with their stuff. If they don't want to trade with you or give you their property voluntarily, you don't just get to take it away. But your supposed right to my lemonade is just another way of saying you think you have the moral authority to take my stuff.
What are you trying to say here?
Give me my 50 cents, jerk!
Human rights don't really mean anything if they aren't equal for all people. But when we all agree to respect other people's rights, we get to live in a society that's stable, peaceful, and increasingly prosperous. And who wouldn't want that? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want more material like it, check out fee.org. Since I was a little kid, I've always loved politics. A few days after I first learned where my family stood on the most pressing issues of the day, I asked my mother a simple question. Mom, are we right about everything?
Yes. We weren't. I mean, most things, we were right about most things, but there are a few positions my family held which I no longer agree with, which means they were wrong about them. Or does it mean I'm wrong about them? Or maybe we're both wrong about them? I came from a conservative Irish Catholic home, but I went to a primary school with students from all sorts of different backgrounds. And we were engaging in dialogue constantly. Yeah, I know most kids aren't interested in politics per se, but we all hold strong opinions from an early age and spend a good deal of time defending those views from others. So if we know children can handle exposure to adversarial ideas, why do we insist on protecting college students from them?
I believe letter A is the best.
I believe letter A is the best as well. I like the letter B.
As the dean of your university, it has come to my attention that you're making the other students feel unsafe on campus.
What? I'm making them feel unsafe?
You son of a...
See, a few college administrators seem to believe that hearing new points of view can be unsafe or damaging to students on a theoretical level. Ironically, this kind of thinking can actually put people holding whatever view is being demonized in real danger.
You've yet to give a good reason why someone should support your position.
Because I'm not allowed to.
Why should you be?
It's an interesting question. Let's imagine he could freely express his views to others. There would be 3 basic potential outcomes.
Wow, I hadn't considered that. I guess I support B now. Wow, I hadn't considered that. I still support A, but not as much as I used to, or not for the same reasons. Wow, I hadn't considered that. I still completely disagree. Here's why.
As you may have noticed, every one of these outcomes increases people's understanding of the world and each other's perspectives, and no one got beat up.
In the end, there are only two possible ways of confronting disagreement: talking it through, or one party forcing the other to conform. But then again, who knows? Can you trust any of what I'm saying? I did mention at the beginning of the video that I'm not so sure that I'm right about everything. Maybe I'm completely full of it. Maybe I'm just a little bit full of it. Maybe we're all a little bit full of it, and we have some bad ideas that need airing so that we can test their validity on others. And maybe the only way we can get to the truth is by being able to discuss all ideas. The belief in freedom of expression isn't just a single ideal, it's the single most important ideal for the functioning of our society. It's the very cornerstone of our search for truth. And if we remove this cornerstone, no matter how good our intentions might be, everything else falls. So let's keep it in place and keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video and want to learn more about the topic, please check out fee.org for more content. Thank you so much. This is Susan. She and her husband both work full-time to support their 3 children. But even with their dual incomes, they're finding it more and more difficult to afford health insurance.
How could one visit be this expensive?
Wait until you see how much your husband's resuscitation is gonna cost.
Incidences like this, combined with their anxiety over rising premiums, is turning their American dream into sleepless nights. Why can't Susan and her family catch a break? It wasn't always this way. The healthcare spending crisis didn't start until the mid-1960s, around the same time when Medicare and Medicaid were signed into law, and also at the same time that we began requiring doctors to go through all sorts of expensive licensing procedures beyond medical school. Why? Well, there's a few reasons. Everyone wants healthcare, but there's only so much to go around, and short supply leads to high prices. Normally what happens in a marketplace is that when prices are high, entrepreneurs try to profit by finding more affordable ways to provide these goods and services. The more people become involved in providing these services, the less scarce they become, and the lower the prices drop, so that over time, more and more people can afford them. This is what happened to televisions, microwaves, computers, cell phones, internet service, delivery services, food, shipping, transportation, air travel, entertainment, home security, fitness, yoga, massages, veterinarian services, and even all the medical technology like LASIK that isn't as heavily regulated or controlled by government.
What do I have that the common man doesn't? This beautiful television set, and this microwave and refrigerator.
Sorry, but everyone can afford those now.
Oh, curse you, entrepreneurs! You never cease to allow the common man to catch up to me. But at least they'll never be able to talk on the phone while in a car.
Okay, so I see what you're saying about the market driving prices down, but who says government can't?
Well, let me explain what happened with Medicare and Medicaid as an example. In 1965, these 2 single-payer health insurance programs were instituted in the U.S. These programs made the unfortunate less dependent on impartial private charities and more dependent on political institutions and pharmaceutical companies. On top of that, these programs consistently require tax increases, and because they function more to satisfy the healthcare industry than the worker, they continually lead to more expensive and wasteful ways of treating patients. As a result, prices continually rise, making it more difficult for people like Susan and her family to afford health insurance. Not only that, but in 1965, the government also took over the training of new doctors, and in 1997, they limited the number of new doctors they would train at 110,000 per year, and the number hasn't changed since. Even worse, our government won't let migrant doctors from developed Western countries practice in the US without undergoing this training. As a result, experienced doctors from other countries are less likely to want to practice medicine in the US. This contributes to the scarcity of doctors, making healthcare even more expensive.
Well, I see that those programs didn't work as intended, but I'm sure Obamacare will. Won't that solve the problem?
Unfortunately, Obamacare suffers from similar problems. It eliminated the pricing structure by seriously restricting competition because all providers have to offer the same kinds of plans at the same price. And because the price isn't really determined by the market, providers can charge the taxpayer way more than they could have otherwise. It's basically just a handout to the big insurance companies.
I guess people like me just can't catch a break.
But it doesn't have to be this way. If we get the government out of healthcare, more people like Susan will be able to get the care they need. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video and want to learn more about the topic, please check out fee.org for more content. Thank you so much. Is being PC the same as being polite? As someone who fights on the side of free speech, I'm the first to tell you, we do have a tendency to strawman political correctness. You may have heard things like,
"Them snowflakes just don't want to be offended,"
or, "They want to suppress the truth, man!" And though I agree in PC culture's worst form, all these things are true. Those aren't the actual arguments they make. So let me arm you with the intellectual tools you need to successfully contribute to this discussion. And if you're PC, listen with an open mind, and maybe I can change it. One argument that's actually made is that political correctness is just a boogeyman term invented to lash out against polite society without seeming crude or uncivil. That what we call political correctness is actually just politeness, and we simply don't want to be polite. But this is just plain wrong. There's a difference between being PC and being polite, and I can prove it. Let's look at an example. Jim and Jill. Jill doesn't like racist humor because it offends others and because she doesn't want to be a jerk. Jill is polite. Jim doesn't like racist humor because he believes that problematic social attitudes inadvertently contribute to the upholding of systemic power structures that strengthen systemic bigotry and subconsciously influence us to commit acts of violence. What? Let me break it down. Jim believes when you say bad words, you contribute to negative social attitudes, which cause others to commit acts of violence. For example, trans people have a high suicide rate. When you question modern gender theory, misgender someone, or commit another similar microaggression, you contribute to a culture which marginalizes non-gender conforming people and increases their suicide rate. This may sound convincing, until you realize this logic can be applied to any group if you're willing to make the same kinds of assumptions. Veterans and soldiers have a very high suicide rate and aren't well cared for, but we can still criticize US foreign policy and military action. We even burn flags. Young men have a very high suicide rate as well. Shouldn't male bashing be a hate crime? We can do all the same mental gymnastics to make either case, and whether or not you're taken in by them, it's clear that the motivations for being PC and just being polite are different. Jill doesn't want to upset or alienate anyone with her use of language. Jim believes that stumbling across the improper uses of language is tantamount to violence. Jill is a nice person. Jim is an ideologue. Jill is polite. Jim is PC.
I'm polite.
And I'm PC, okay. You know, there's no difference between us, really.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I want people to be polite, but I don't want to ban impolite speech.
Neither do I. That's just an insane strawman argument. Name one country where PC people have gotten any forms of speech banned.
You mean besides Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Croatia, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Iceland, Ireland, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Sweden, Switzerland?
Don't be PC. Be polite. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, hit subscribe right here on YouTube and check out Fee on Facebook as well as at fee.org. Thank you so much. Fake news. It's our new favorite buzzword. A politician you like got criticized? Fake news. Outlets are printing statistical information that doesn't uphold your narrative? Fake news. Anyone publishes anything you don't like? What is fake news? There's a lot of buzz around this concept lately, but it isn't a new one. Not long ago, words like media bias or agenda-driven programming would replace fake news in almost every one of those previously uttered sentences. And before that, words like heresy, blasphemy, balderdash, and poppycock were equivalents. They're just quick phrases constructed to delegitimize another person's perspective without examining it.
Fake news.
We may lose the Vietnam War.
Fake news. Yes, Your Royal Highness, the colonies want to revolt. Fake news.
Oh, fake news. Og-funded media.
So if people have been trying to discredit information they disagree with since the dawn of time, why is the concept of fake news so much more pressing at the present moment? It's been said that we now live in the post-truth era. And that leads me to ask, when was the era of truth? Did I miss it? At what point did we devolve from a population of highly tuned skeptics and into uncritical consumers of faulty information?
Oh my, did you fact-check your newsfeed today?
Why, yes, of course. I fact-check my newsfeed every day.
As per usual, not a single error from a face feed.
Yes, indeed, and Jessica's organic blog.wordpress.com is impeccable.
Isn't it always?
Such thinking is fantastical. People have always spread misinformation to promote their own views. Before the 1980s, there were basically only 4 TV networks where all of your news came from. And since they were all mostly on the same page, we got a lot of the same information. Even if these networks meant well, when they got something wrong, that meant everybody got it wrong. And this was a big problem. But then, with the advent and popularity of the internet, these networks no longer held a monopoly over the public's access to information, and you could get information from anyone with any perspective. There are obvious downsides to this. Folks on the internet have fooled other people into doing all sorts of stupid things, like microwaving their cell phones and forwarding this email to everyone on their contact list lest they receive 7 years bad luck and not be kissed by their crush this Friday. Television media, on the other hand, convinced the public that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq when there weren't, that the WikiLeaks were unreliable, and that Full House was funny. I'll let you decide which bit of misinformation was worse for society. When the internet allowed organizations like WikiLeaks to provide us with pertinent information that was being withheld from the public, most of the big players in media did nothing but try to discredit them, even though they turned out to be right. It's obvious that this kind of information would never have made it to the public if we had exclusively trusted old media, so it's a good thing we didn't. Is fake news new? No way. But the amount of access we have to it is. On the flip side, we now have greater access to accurate information we may not have had before. So, how does one operate within this landscape? When you hear an extraordinary claim, demand extraordinary evidence. Check the sources on every article. Keep your guard up and don't be quick to outrage. Be the most skeptical of that which you wish to be true. Most importantly, don't just write off a story because it's from a website you distrust. Fact check them and examine their arguments. Don't just write them off by calling them fake news. And who knows, you might be surprised. Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Fake news.
Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And also check us out at fee.org. Thanks so much.